Hello everyone. I hope you're doing well as you sit here watching this video. I'm recording it because I can't be with you in person, and as I was preparing to record this for you, I realized it's not quite as effective because a lot of the interactions I was going to have with group discussion will be lost as I present this to you. But you should have handouts that I will have emailed to you. And today's session is Praying Like Jesus and Mary, session number 2 of our pillar 4 of the Catechism, basically the spiritual life. So for today's topic, we're going to talk about prayer that God the Father awaits from us as his sons and daughters. So at our last session, we talked about the unfolding drama of God's initiative, God initiating in our life and our response, because God longs for closeness with us. We read paragraph 2567, Catechism 2567, which says, "The living and true God tirelessly calls each person to that mysterious encounter known as prayer. God initiates. What is our response?" And then we showed a Star Wars clip, if you remember, and the main point of that was everyone remembers. What do you remember from last time? The Star Wars clip. Well, why? Because it's kind of an analogy for the Force, the Holy Spirit, God who calls us into this drama of life and love with Him, and we have the help of the Holy Spirit, the Force, and God called Luke, the Force called Luke out of his existence into a greater adventure. And so too, God calls us in our hearts, minds, and souls in our lives into a drama of life and love, responding to God's initiative in our life. So I ask a question when I do this live, and the question is this: if the heart is a battlefield between love and lust, which is what John Paul II said, the heart is a battlefield between love and lust, how would you define heart? And we have lots of nice discussion on this, but it boils down to God calls me in my heart to say yes to Him, but in my heart I have difficulties because of the three lusts of 1 John 2:16, the lust for power, the lust for material goods, and the lust of the flesh. So I'm desiring to say yes to God, but in my own heart there is a battle for those three lusts. So there are several scriptural passages that refer to the heart, and I'll just read a couple for you. In Deuteronomy 6:5-6. "And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your might. And these words which I command you this day shall be upon your heart." Jeremiah 29:3. "And you will seek me and find me when you search for me with all your heart." Jeremiah 24:7. "I will give them a heart to know that I am the Lord, and they shall be my people, and I will be their God, for they shall return to me with their whole heart." Matthew 6:21. "For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also." So in paragraph 2599, I'll just read this to you and then we have discussion, but we won't have time for that in this um, format. Catechism 2599 says this: "The Son of God who became Son of the Virgin also learned to pray according to his human heart. He learns the formulas of prayer from his mother." Hopefully you can be reading along as we do this. Paragraph 2599. "He learns the formulas of prayer from his mother, who kept in her heart and meditated upon all the great things done by the Almighty. He learns to pray in the words and rhythms of the prayer of his people, in the synagogue at Nazareth and the temple at Jerusalem. But his prayer springs from an otherwise secret source, as he intimates at the age of 12. I must be in my Father's house." Here the newness of prayer in the fullness of time begins to be revealed. His filial, and the filial means of sons and daughters. His filial prayer as a son, which the Father awaits from us, his children, is finally going to be lived out by the only Son in his humanity with and for us. So if you look through that, what's that saying to you? Just a couple of thoughts. Jesus prayed according to his human heart. And it also talks about the formulas of prayers. As your students learn, and we learned as children, we learn the formulas of prayer first, and they're a beautiful starting point. And in fact, they'll always be with us. But the problem with those memorized prayers is they can't just be words that we speak like a parrot. The beautiful vocal prayers that we'll have with us throughout our lives, we say them at church, at home, with the rosary, and what have you, are beautiful, but they can't stay on our lips. They need to sink down into our hearts. Okay? All right. So then, if we were in person, I would ask you all, what are some false ideas or misconceptions about prayer that are not like this filial prayer that Jesus teaches us, prayer of sons and daughters? So some of the things that people come up with is that the prosperity gospel. If I'm just a good Christian, then everything in my life will be blessed. That's a false idea, misconception, because many good and faithful people have tremendous trials. Another one is that God is like a vending machine. If I just put in my little prayers, out will come my answers. Or all I need to do is say my prayers and I'm good. Okay? Or if I just keep my obligations, then all will be well. So those are some misconceptions. Those things aren't bad in and of themselves, but prayer is so much more than treating God like a vending machine God. The truth is that prayer is efficacious. In terms of prayer, there's a scriptural passage that I'll read to you. It's from Matthew 6, 5-7. It says this, "And when you pray, you must not be like the hypocrites, for they love to stand and pray in the synagogues and at the street corners, that they may be seen by men. Truly I say to you, they have received their reward. But when you pray, go into your room and shut the door and pray to your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. And in praying, do not heap up empty phrases, as the Gentiles do, for they think that they will be heard for their many words." So what are some thoughts on that? Those are some misconceptions, and we'll try to alleviate those as we go through the rest of the session. In paragraph 2602 from the Catechism, it says, Jesus often draws apart to pray in solitude, on a mountain, preferably at night. What's that saying to us? If you recall our last session, my challenge to you was to, if you aren't actually intentionally giving Jesus your heart for 5 minutes a day without doing anything else, driving the car, jogging, or whatever, sit there and intentionally exchange hearts. Listen to the heart of Jesus and tell him about your heart for 5 minutes. That was the challenge. Time in solitude, doing nothing else. Let's look at paragraph 2608 and 2609. If I had you in person, I was going to give every different group a catechism paragraph, and then you do a little jigsaw activity where you would talk about what yours said, what you reflected on, and then share it with the rest of the group. Catechism 2608 says this: "From the Sermon on the Mount onwards, Jesus insists on conversion of heart, reconciliation with one's brother before presenting an offering on the altar, love of enemies, and prayer for persecutors, prayer to the Father in secret, not heaping up empty phrases, prayerful forgiveness from the depths of the heart, purity of heart, and seeking the kingdom before all else. This filial conversion is entirely directed to the Father." In 2609, it says this: "Once committed to conversion of heart, once committed to conversion, the heart learns to pray in faith. Faith is a filial, of sons and daughters, adherence to God beyond what we feel and understand. It is possible because the beloved Son gives us access to the Father. He can ask us to seek and to knock, since he himself is the door and the way." So what do we take away from this one? We had a great discussion at several of the schools. If we seek and knock, it will be given to you. What does that look like? Well, sometimes people said, well, God answers our prayers just in a way that we don't necessarily expect. Another way to look at that is with the saints. You know, the church has this process of canonization. And one of the reasons for that is they believe that if they're already in the presence of God in heaven and they're actually in the church triumphant, their hearts are more one with God. So when they ask, their will is already in union with God's, and the fact that they are closer to God means their prayers might be more readily answered. In that vein, let's read Catechism paragraph 2610 and 2611. It says this: just as Jesus prays to the Father and gives thanks before receiving his gifts, so he teaches us filial boldness. Whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you receive it, and you will. Such is the power of prayer and of faith that does not doubt. All things are possible to him who believes. Jesus is as saddened by the lack of faith of his own neighbors and the little faith of his own disciples as he is struck with admiration at the great faith of the Roman centurion and the Canaanite woman. So, ask and you will receive, seek and you will find. So, what does that look like? Like I said, the saints are closer to God, and the intercession of the saints is more efficacious. Why? I'll propose to you that praying fervently, trying to trust and have faith that God will answer this for me. Well, that is true and it can happen, but sometimes we do that when the rest of our life isn't echoing or showing deep trust and faith in God. But those who give God their entire lives, I propose, those who are the saints, their prayers can sometimes be more efficacious. That's why we ask for the saints' intercession. Okay, so those are just some thoughts, and we're running out of time because I'm going to keep this to 15 minutes. Um, what does closeness to God look like and my prayer look like? One time, my wife, before we lost one of our children, we were praying fervently that all would work out. And even though our prayer wasn't answered that way, we lost the child anyway. My wife's definition of what trust looked like changed greatly. Trust didn't mean that everything would always work out, but it did mean that God was with us. As we look back on that very difficult time, we see that God's presence was with us very powerfully. Didn't work out how we wanted, but God was with us. So too with Jesus on the cross. He felt abandoned, one could say, but God was very powerfully with him. All right, let's see here. I'm going to read another paragraph here, paragraph 26:14. It says, when Jesus openly entrusts to his disciples the mystery of prayer to the Father, he reveals to them what their prayer and ours must be, once he has returned to the Father in his glorified humanity. What is new is to ask in his name. Faith in the Son introduces the disciples into the knowledge of the Father, because Jesus is the way and the truth and the life. Faith bears its fruit in love. It means keeping the word and the commandments of Jesus. It means abiding with him in the Father, who in him so loves us that he abides with us. So prayer, more than treating God as a vending machine, is more about abiding with God and learning how to be more closely and intimately involved with God in our lives so that we abide with him always and that we become more and more in union with him. The last paragraph I want to touch upon is one that relates to the prayer of the Virgin Mary. It says in 26:17, Mary's prayer is revealed to us at the dawning of the fullness of time, before the incarnation of the Son of God and before the outpouring of the Holy Spirit. Her prayer cooperates in a unique way with the Father's plan of loving kindness. I just completed a dissertation that relates to Mary at the foot of the cross. And this saint that I wrote on, Saint Manuel Gonzalez Garcia, one of his biggest insights that he shares is that when everyone else abandoned Jesus at the foot of the cross, Mary and the other two Marys were there, and so was the Apostle John. And one of his greatest contributions is that the tabernacle is like a modern day Calvary. And so, in the same way that Mary remained steadfast at the foot of the cross, so she remains steadfast at the foot of modern day Calvary in the tabernacle. And with a mother's heart, she gathers our prayers and presents them to her Son. So I leave these thoughts with you, and hopefully they were of some benefit. May God bless you.